Ooh, that felt good. Hello, Jacksonites. Welcome to episode 47 of Super Kaiju Binge. And we have finally arrived at for the moment, for the next just under 2 months, the final installment of the Gamera franchise until Gamera Rebirth comes to us in September of this year. With 2006's Gamera the Brave, for the moment, sole Millennium film in the Gamera franchise. Joining me today is Andrew Englund from Texas Guy Movie Reviews. Make yourself known.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
This is the same
Yep.
guy who reviewed Jurassic Park with me last year, but we finally got him hooked up with StreamYard. Jumping right into talking about this movie, what is your history as a Gamera fan?
Well, my first Gamera movie was Gamera Super Monster. So prior to that, I hadn't seen
Wow,
any of the other ones
that's a
before
very
that, and then
unfortunate introduction.
yeah, and then when I finally found Gamera versus Barugon on VHS at this little flea market, and after watching it, I realized that it was stock footage, and I was like, "Oh no, man, what's going on?" And then I realized what was actually going on, and I was like, "Man, I hate that movie."
So, what is your history with Gamera the Brave, and what are your initial?
uh, well, I didn't even know this existed. It was about, I think it was 2007 when I found it at Hastings, and I was like, "Wow, cool," you know. So I bought it, and I went home and I watched it, and I mean, I didn't think it was that bad, you know, except for a few things, but most Gamera movies do have a lot wrong with them, so it's just in my opinion anyway.
Alrighty, so Gamera the Brave is an interesting film for myself because for a long time I never expected to lay eyes on this movie whatsoever. Back in the dark ages before we had this huge kaiju renaissance, Gamera the Brave was very difficult to find for a long time. In 2007, a little over a year after this movie was released in Japan, Media Blasters put out their Gamera the Brave DVD, and for a long time, that was very inaccessible for many people. And when the Gamera Legacy Collection was released, I was disappointed to see that it did not include Gamera the Brave. So I just kind of figured that um, Gamera the Brave would just be
Excuse
kind
me.
of an almost lost kaiju film because for so long it was just so limited in stock and extremely expensive. So I just never expected to see this. And doing research for the film too, Gamera the Brave just never really struck me of any significant interest. It never really uh, intrigued me with any of its plot details, and so I was just kind of fine with letting it just kind of sit there in obscurity. Nothing about it really intrigued me. So I was like, no harm, no foul. Kind of the same attitude that I still to this day have with King Kong Lives, because that movie so limited in stock, but it's also not a really good movie. I'm just like, yeah, I'm okay not having that film. It can just kind of sit there in obscurity.
Yeah.
But behold, back in 2017 or 2018, um, I noticed that that same Media Blasters DVD had a little bit more in stock than usual, so it was about $25. So I decided I'll bite the bullet and get this movie. Why not? I've been meaning to see this for a while because I got kind of curious about checking it out due to Zazubar reviewing the film on Gamera Palooza back in 2014. So I was just like, okay, why not? So I picked up the movie and I did an unboxing video on my YouTube channel back in when I first got it. That video doesn't exist anymore, but I remember saying that I didn't really think I was going to dig it very much. So I sat down and I watched Gamera the Brave for the first time and I was wrong. I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie. And now that I've seen the film 3 times, this most recently with the audio commentary on the Arrow video set with Keith Eichen and Bob Johnson, I think his name was. This is a bitchin' cover.
I know.
Uh, Gamera the Brave might be my second favorite Gamera film. At one point in time, I said that I think it's my fourth favorite Gamera film, but it has gone up quite a bit for me. I like Gamera the Brave quite a bit. I think it's a very underrated, very underappreciated, and extremely overlooked monster movie. But it's unfortunately due to a lot of circumstances that this movie did kind of languish in obscurity for so long because the movie kind of came out at the worst possible time. So, with the release of Godzilla Final Wars in 2004, it being a gargantuan box office bomb, one of the lowest grossing Godzilla films of the whole franchise, and with this movie, right after this movie coming out, the kaiju genre would hit its rock bottom in the late 2000s. And it would just kind of dry up for audience interest for almost a decade. And it really wasn't until Pacific Rim came out and then Godzilla 2014 that reignited everybody's interest in monster movies. But this kind of was the last hurrah for monster movies for a long time, and it was a good one to go out on, but it also was not the best one to go out on, with the
No.
exception of Cloverfield in 2008 and Death Kappa from 2010, which I've never seen, but it looks stupid as fuck. Um, yeah, this is an interesting and unfortunate period that this movie got released in. Anything to discuss before I move on?
Mm, no, I don't think so.
Oh, what are your
Unless you guys,
how
what's
does it
up?
rank as how does it rank amongst your favorite or least favorite Gamera films?
Mm, it'd probably at least have to be at least in my top five. Probably three.
Cool. Alrighty, so Gamera the Brave is a 2006 Japanese kaiju film directed by Ryuta Tasaki and written by Yukari Tatsui and produced by Kadawaka Dai God damn it, Bill. Kadokawa Dai Studio. It is the 12th entry in the Gamera franchise and serves as the second reboot, with the first being Gamera Guardian of the Universe, of course. It is also the first entry in the series to be produced by Kadokawa Dai Studio after the company purchased a percentage of the remaining assets of Dai Film, the original studio that was responsible for making the Gamera films. So, a little bit of history regarding this. So, following the release of Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris and the kind of underwhelming performance of that film as well back in 1999, in 2002, Kadokawa purchased a whole bunch of Daii's properties and rights and kind of folded Daii into its own company, forming Kadokawa Daii. This was done after the death of the president of Takuma Shoten Publishing Studio. So,
Mm.
with that being completed, Kadokawa wanted to pursue starting to make up some money that it lost and start making some movies and or shows based on Dai property. The first of which was The Great Yokai War from 2005, which was a big hit. This came in 2006. And then in 2010, after some plans falling through to create a new Daimajin film, a new Daimajin TV series known as Daimajin Canon, which I have seen a fair bit of at one point when the whole series was uploaded to YouTube. It was a 25 episode series that was a reimagining of the original Daimajin done in modern day. It's not great by any means, but it's kind of unique and kind of interesting in its own right, but it's very strange and unconventional. We would see a more conventional version of Daimajin in the sequel to the Great Yokai War, which I think came out either last year or the year before. I can't remember what it's called, um but there's an interesting history surrounding Gamera the Brave. Before the Great Yokai War, Kadokawa created a pitch that they threw at Toho, and originally they wanted to finally do Godzilla versus Gamera on the big screen. And according to the two commentators for the Arrow set, um, well, Toho shot them down, unfortunately. And the reason why has never really been officially concretely confirmed. It could be a mix of a lot of things, one of which being because Godzilla Final Wars bombed at the box office, that Toho just wasn't interested in funneling more money into a property that was not doing so well for themselves. Um, Two, it could have to do with the fact that in the early to mid 2000s, the kaiju genre was really running out of steam. And according to the two commentators for the Arrow set, apparently Toho deemed Godzilla versus Gamera as being more beneficial for Kadokawa than Toho. Um, and also Toho knowing that they have so many weird stipulations and rules for what you can do with Godzilla and what you can't do with Godzilla. It was probably just a
Hmm.
case of Toho and Kadokawa just mixing like water and oil. So it's unfortunate that that never came to be because, of course, people have been wanting to see Godzilla versus Gamera for decades. I mean, I'm fine with that death battle video of Godzilla versus Gamera, but um, it is still a shame. And I do think, even though the kaiju genre was starting to show signs of wear and tear, had they actually made Godzilla versus Gamera, I would almost bet that this movie kind of would have breathed more life into the kaiju genre at the time had it been made. But it never came to be, which is a big shame.
Yeah.
So with that being shot down, Kadokawa just proceeded to um released Gamera the Brave in 2006. And one of the executive producers for this movie had a lot of concerns for this movie, seeing the writing on the wall and thinking this might not be a good time to release this movie. And it turns out he was right, unfortunately. Gamera the Brave, in and of itself, was also a major box office disappointment. It cost 1.5 billion yen and for its
Hmm.
entire box office run, made only 410 million yen. Do the calculations for what that equates to, but it was an unfortunate major box office disappointment for Kadokawa. And this is what caused the 4-year delay for Daimajin Canon and made the ideas for new Daimajin movies fall down the shitter, which is unfortunate. And there wasn't really anything else that Kadokawa did with Gamera until that short trailer that was released in 2015, but that was purely done as a test for Kadokawa to get people interested in another Gamera film, and that also fell through and just never came to be. But thankfully, come this September, there is a new Gamera project being released, the animated 6-episode Gamera Rebirth series on Netflix, made by the same people that did the anime Netflix Godzilla trilogy.
Oh man. Hmm. Well,
You're not really invoking much confidence there, guys.
no, I don't think so. But I got a little bit of hope in it, though. Please,
At least the monsters look cool. I'll give them that.
yeah, the monsters do look cool.
So, with all that said, 16 minutes into the video, let us jump into the plot of Gamera the Brave, shall we?
All right. Hmm.
In 1973, a young boy named Kosuke evacuates his home in the picturesque seaside city of Shima Mie, which is under attack by a trio of bat like Gauss monsters until a benign kaiju resembling a turtle named Gamera intervenes to buy time for the evacuation. Unable to kill off all the Gauss, Gamera sacrifices himself in a self-destruct ability to end the threat of the Gauss for good as Kosuke watches from the shores. 33 years later, in 2006, Kosuke has grown up and has become a widower with his young son Toru, having just lost his wife to a car accident shortly before the film. Toru has friends, but has a fear of being left alone because he is plagued by memories of his late mother and Kosuke having to work so much to support his family. Toru's fears are intensified when he finds his friend and neighbor Mai has to undergo a dangerous heart surgery. When his other friends, Katsuya and Ishimaru, take him out exploring to try and cheer him up, Toru discovers an unusual egg atop a red stone in the same place Gamera self-destructed decades ago. The egg hatches into a small tortoise Toru nicknames Toto, after what his mother used to call him. By the way, fun fact, Toru's mother being played by the same actress who played Maul in the
Hmm.
Rebirth of Monster trilogy.
Yeah, I recognized her whenever I watched it today. Unfortunately, I was only able to watch the dub.
It's a decent dub, so you're not missing that
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah, it's not bad.
Toto begins to display abilities such as high intelligence, levitation, and breathing small bursts of fire while growing at a rapid rate. The turtle quickly outgrows the house and is relocated by Toru and his friends to maintain secrecy. Toru also gives Mai the red stone he found Toto's egg on as a good luck charm for her heart surgery. However, after a storm, Toru finds Toto has left his hideaway and gone missing. Concurrently, many shipping disasters occur in the area, the cause of which is the Kaiju Zetus, a monstrous man-eating reptile which soon thereafter rampages through the city. It corners Toru, Kosuke, and Toru's friends, but the boy's former pet, now significantly larger, intercedes. The turtle is now clearly a young Gamera. Toto is wounded in the fight and captured by government officials. Privy to Gamera being benevolent creatures and knowing Zetus would return, the government has scientists who studied the previous Gamera work to help heal the wounded Toto. Keeping him in a warehouse, they bandage the unconscious young kaiju and hook the creature up to a machine which infuses it with liquid derived from mysterious red stones found in the vicinity of the past Gamera's self-destruction, which the scientists theorize give the Gamera their power. Mai's surgery is successful, and her mother calls Kosuke and Toru to give the good news. But she also states Mai keeps muttering in her sleep that Toto needs the glowing stone. Zetus attacks again, and the now near fully grown Toto, now larger, goes out to battle him to save fleeing citizens. Toru and his friends determine that the still immature Gamera, still getting his ass kicked, must consume the red stone which Toru had found with the egg. A much larger and more concentrated form of the red beads the scientist had used in order to gain its full power. Kosuke, having seen the damage a kaiju brawl can have firsthand and not wanting to lose his son as he did his wife, initially opposes their efforts to get close to Toto, but comes around to help them after ensuring Katsuya and Ishimaru get to safety. Mai tries to reach them or Toto to deliver the stone, but her post-surgery weakness inhibits her along with her parents. The red stone, however, seems to connect to various children who come to Mai's aid and relay the stone across the city to Toru and his friends. Typical Gamera utilizing child slavery. Zetus, firmly having the upper hand in the battle, hurls Toto into a skyscraper, that building having just been completed construction 2 years prior. Man, come on. Kosuke holds up debris to help Toru get into the building, and Toru, after begging Toto not to die to save the day like his predecessor did, throws the red stone into Gamera's mouth during the battle. Gamera's power of jet-propelled flight manifests itself, and it defeats Zetus anticlimactically by firing a charged-up fireball attack down Zetus's throat. The kaiju escapes further government investigation with Toru, Kosuke, and the other children's assistance. Watching his former pet fly off into the sky, Toru finally calls Toto by his true name and whispers, "Sayonara, Gamera," thus ending the film. Well, so how about this plot?
It's not that bad. I mean, it's way better than Gamera versus Zero, that's for sure. Think anything is better than that movie, just about. Yeah.
Alrighty, so my thoughts on this story, I like it a lot. This honestly, okay, I'm just gonna say it. I like this Gamera reboot more than Gamera Guardian of the Universe. But that's odd because at the same time, so I do think this is a very good movie. It's a very good, I'll say it's a good monster movie. It's a very overall, in general, well-made movie. It has, great
Yeah.
effects, great characters, a very well-told, heartfelt, emotional story. It's a great, fun family movie. To quote a couple reviewers who I've heard say this, it has a very similar tone to like those family adventure movies like E.T., The Goonies, or especially Free Willy and the Iron Giant. It's about a boy and his giant pet slash best friend, just like Free Willy and the Iron Giant. But with that being said, it's not the greatest Gamera movie because the monster movie storyline in this movie, I'll save this for later, but it definitely is lacking, unfortunately. But thankfully, the human story comes along and picks up the slack that the monster movie side of this lets you down on. And this is a rare example of a monster movie that um, has the better human element. The monster movie side of things is a bit lacking, but the human side of things is the best part of the film. The only other movie I can think of that does this is Invasion of the Astro Monster. That's it. But still, I really like this movie's plot. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's just a well-made movie. Not much else to say.
Yeah.
So you say you have 7 pros, yes?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Alrighty, you can go first because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 kind of 11 pros.
Okay. Okay, let's see. See. Oh, you still there?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, my first pro is pretty much the practical effects and music. It's pretty good. Uh, I mean,
Your
I
favorite
wouldn't.
pros?
Up there I am. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Yeah. The practical effects are pretty good. The miniatures and of course, the suits. They're pretty good. Uh, Zetus especially. He's kind of brutal looking at the same time as he's cool too, though. Kind of hard to describe him, sort of what for me. But yeah, that and let's see. Um, I'll go with number two. The cinematography is pretty great. There's some pretty great scenes of the ocean and everything like that. I guess it kind of goes in with number one with the effects and everything.
Okay.
So
I'll get a couple out too. So pro number
okay,
one
go ahead.
is the I call it fun throwback to classic roots. In an attempt to make this movie different from its predecessors, this is no way even remotely a sequel to Gamera Revenge of Iris. Think for better or for worse. Um, I think this movie does a better job at rebooting Gamera. While I appreciate Gamera Guardian of the Universe taking the classic tropes of Gamera and turning it into something completely fresh and new, what this movie does, it takes Gamera, including the child friendly elements and keeping the more fun, campy Showa era traditions and roots, and this modernizes it in a way, to quote the YouTuber Up from the Depths, I think he puts it perfectly. It's done earnestly. It's not campy or
Yeah,
goofy or stupid for the sake of such. It retains all of those classic tropes and does it in a way that is both appealing to both kids and adults. This is something, again, that's like The Iron Giant. That movie is a movie that kids can enjoy, but there are some things that adults can enjoy too. So it pleases both crowds. I've said many times, if a film tries to cater itself to a demographic, that demographic is happy, but everybody else is just left in the dust. This movie is a good crowd pleaser for both, for any kind of demographic. Monster movie fans, kids movie fans, family adventure movie fans. Anybody can watch this movie and enjoy it for what it is, which it's done very well. And this will
Yeah.
go into pro number 2 is the tone of this film. This movie is not dark or brooding or mystical or mythological like Gamera Guardian of the Universe. It does feel like, now I do think this has a really good balance of being both campy, not even campy. It's just it's more lighthearted, but it also does tackle some fairly serious subject matter. It tackles grief, it tackles friendship, it tackles loss, and it
Hmm.
also tackles acceptance, which it I think it does very well. The darker elements and the lighter elements, I feel like they're equally explored in this movie, and they don't clash or mix like water and oil. They go together just like peanut butter and jelly, in my opinion. Um,
Yes, well balanced.
And I also, this is very minor, but I also really like the seaside town aesthetic of this movie. We don't really see a lot of monster movies that do this, that take place on the coast. At least none that I can think of off the top of my head. But I love the aesthetic of this movie. It's a small town or a small village. Everybody knows anybody, and everybody knows a little bit of something about everybody's family. It's a close, tight knit community, um, and I just really appreciate that aesthetic. Kind of like Frank Darabont's The Mist. Continue. Pro number 3.
Hold on. Okay, there you are. You were lagging a little bit. That's why I couldn't hear you.
Continue.
Uh, uh, pro number three is using a real tortoise for the baby Gamera. I just love tortoises.
He's cute.
I have three. Yeah, I mean, I have three of them, and I used to have that kind that they used in the movie as well
It's
before
an
somebody
African
came
tortoise.
and yeah, it's a African spurred tortoise, or sometimes referred to as a sulcata tortoise. If those get pretty big, they get about 200 pounds plus, so they get pretty big.
And he's tiny. He's like this big in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's pretty great.
um, this will lead me into, one more thing. My pro number 3
Yeah, go
too
ahead.
is the pacing. I think this movie is paced very well. Um, for the most part, nary a scene drags except for the final monster battle. I hate to say it. I'll talk about that more when I get to one of my cons, but for like 95% of this movie is paced very well. Never is there a scene that drags, but I wouldn't say that this movie is quickly paced. I think it takes its time, and it lets the characters and the scenes and the script breathe, and uh it allows the film to explore its universe and explores its characters a lot more. This adds itself into my next pro, or my second to next pro. But for now, I'll just say, yeah, I think this movie's paced very well. It's 96 minutes long, and while it feels 96 minutes, it feels that in a good way because you get so attached to the characters. The movie flows along at a very natural pace, except for one scene, but I'll get to that later. Continue.
All right. Uh, let's see. Number four. There was, for me, anyway, there was a couple of spots in the movie that just felt kind of dark to me. Like, whenever you see, Zetas come down and eat those people right in front of Toru and his family. The first time I seen that, whenever I bought the movie, I was like, "Oh no, man! Wow, that's like,
For kids.
yeah, yeah, for kids. Like, what? Yeah,
Yeah, that caught me off guard quite a bit when I first saw this. That and when Zetus eats that dude out at sea,
oh
and there's this
yeah."
big plume of blood that comes to the water surface. I was like,
It's like,
damn.
wow, wow, yeah. Besides the Gamma versus Gauss one and the Guardian of the Universe, this one does have some gore, to some human gore.
Speaking of which, my next pro is this movie is quite gory as well. Yeah. Zetus kills one dude. Okay, you can already tell right off the bat that with Zetus attacking all those ships out at sea, that's got to be a
Oh yeah.
reference to Godzilla. But I appreciate that. I don't think that was a a case of the studio reusing elements from a previous script. I just think those were done
No.
as being homages, but that's fine. But yeah,
Right.
Zetus slurps one dude down from the surface of the ocean, and the next time you see him, there's this big plume of blood that comes to the surface. And when Zetus first lands in Toru and Kosuke's village, he corners a bunch of people in a bunch of rubble from a bridge, and he walks up to them and he just chomps down on this whole group of people. It's like 20 people, and you don't see them getting eaten, but you see one kid. He's got a little bit of splatter of blood all over his face.
Hmm.
But when Zetus raises his head back up, his teeth and jaws are slathered in blood. But there's also, in true Gamera fashion, quite a bit of monster gore.
Hmm.
Um, one of Zetus's really only special ability is that he has a razor sharp extendable tongue. But he sure uses the shit out of that thing in this movie. He impales Gamera with his tongue
Multiple times.
4 or 5 times throughout this movie.
Yeah.
First time that he impales Gamera, he gets him right through his hand, and there's green blood splattering all over the place when his hand gets stabbed, and especially when Zetus rips out his tongue from Gamera's hand. Um, he stabs him twice, I believe, when he's in the skyscraper, and then once more when Zetus bites down on the fully grown Gamera. Um, but also that same scene when Zetus or Gamera knocks away Zetus and his tongue is still in his shoulder, he grabs hold of Zetus's tongue and
Mm.
yanks it right out of Zetus's mouth. There's purple spooge splattering all over the place, and
Oh
Zetus's
yeah.
tongue is just hanging and flapping all over the place. Yeah, this movie is fairly gory. And thankfully, once again, like I said, even though this movie has darker elements, they don't clash with the more
No.
family oriented elements for this. It feels appropriate. It's in true Gamera fashion. Lots of monster gore.
Yeah. So Um, that
Five.
goes with yeah, that goes with my number five is the family element to this movie. Yeah, it's really great. It all flows throughout the whole story. Uh, even with Maya's parents, you see them. They're uh, they're worried about her because she's going to be having what that heart surgery.
And yeah, that's all that they say it is. It's some kind of heart surgery. That's kind of
Yeah,
developed.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, it has a really good family. There's a lot of great elements to this movie. I believe, in my opinion. But,
My pro number 5 and 6 is the good cast of characters. Thankfully, first time in a Gamera movie since Gamera versus Barugan. And then the great Toru and Toto dynamic. But we'll start with the characters. I like Kosuke. This movie also tackles another thing that you don't see very much in kaiju movies. Um, that being the loss, grief, and acceptance, but also
mhm,
similar to Son of Godzilla. Now, that's not quite like Son of Godzilla, but this movie tackles a single father raising a child that he doesn't have a strong connection to. And over the course of this movie, you see Kosuke and Toru settle their differences and actually work to rebuild their father son bond. It's very well done and it's quite inspiring. Especially Andrew and I are both parents.
mhm,
We can both relate to that very well, and we can put ourselves in that situation and think, how would I react if my son ended up becoming friends with a giant turtle? It's cute, it's heartwarming, and it's very well done. Um,
mhm.
Toto or see, Toru's friends, Ishimaru and Katsuya, they don't have much to do with the story, but they're just here to be Toru's two best friends. But I like their chemistry. You buy them as being childhood buddies, and even though their first scene is they keep trying to pull down each other's pants.
uh,
What? Aside from that, their friendship and their bond is
uh,
very believable and quite strong. My I think she's the most underused character because the
yeah.
commentators for this movie stated that apparently she was here to be like an older sister type character for Toru. But in this movie's novelization, there's more expansion on the fact that Toru has a huge crush on Mai, but that's not even remotely stated in this movie. I think they should have gone more with her being like a surrogate older sister to Toru. Could be somebody for um, Toru to attach himself to, similar to his mom. But I think the snippets that we have, like when she kind of teases him with letting Toru borrow her latest edition of a manga, it's quite sweet, but it is kind of underdeveloped.
Yeah,
But the true
yeah.
highlight of this movie is the relationship between Toru and Toto. I'm not talking quite about Toto slash Gamera quite yet, but their bond and their relationship, it's so adorable. You totally buy these two as being the best of friends. In something that's a little bit more reminiscent of Free Willy rather than the Iron Giant, but it still does feel very, very similar to both. You absolutely buy that Toru has strong feelings, not romantically in a weird way, but just like he sees Toto as his best friend. Um,
Right.
and he just loves him to pieces. And you definitely buy that Toto does also view Toru as his best friend as well. Even though Toru talks to Toto, and Toto can't doesn't talk because Toto can't talk because he's a giant turtle. You could just kind of feel the feelings and the emotional connection between the two. It's very deep and it's very strong, and it's absolutely adorable to watch. Um, your next pro, I think you're number 6.
Yeah. Is Zetas? He's pretty great. Uh, he's an original idea. You know what I mean? uh,
I got
and
some
he's a
short
brutal
stories
at
on
and
Cheetahs.
I'm sure you do, but like he's not the best
He looks
Gamera
cool. I'll give him that.
monster. He is pretty. Yeah, yeah. He looks cool, and he is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So at least give him that. I digress. So
Um. So I may as well talk about this. My pro number
okay,
6. Hang on, let's track again. 1, 2, 3.
I think you were on 7, weren't you?
Yeah, pro number 7 is Toto slash Gamera. Not talking about the effects.
You were
He's
right.
adorable. He is absolutely fucking adorable, and I love it. Sure, he's not necessarily intimidating or threatening, but I'm okay with that. This is hands down the cutest version of Gamera in the
Yeah.
entire series. Um, and probably, yeah, he is cuter than Minya from Son of Godzilla, mostly by default. I do still think Manila from Godzilla Final Wars is cuter, but yeah, Toto is adorable as shit in this movie, and he's a lot of fun to watch. There's not much to say about Toto slash Gamera in this movie. Oh, I also do I like Gamera at the very beginning of this movie too. I actually
Mm.
like
Oh yeah.
the tortoise Gamera, as I call him. Toto is obviously very turtle-like, but Gamera at the very beginning of this movie is obviously very much like a giant tortoise. Um,
Hmm.
some people hate hate that design for Gamera, but I actually really like it. That's a big badass Gamera that I'd like to see more of. There's not very much of him that is seen, but he's still cool. Um, he's not quite as badass, Toto, as a lot of other Gameras. I'd actually probably say only just by default, he might be the weakest Gamera of the entire series. But he's still cute. He's still fun to watch, and his relationship with Toru is a lot of fun to watch too.
Yeah.
Um, you're pro number 7.
Uh. The the scene when Gamera gets the stone, how Toru's sitting there and he's sitting there talking to him and he's like, please don't explode, please don't blow yourself up. That was actually pretty cool. And then he throws a stone to him, and then he knocks the Zetas' punk ass right off the building.
Pro number 8. So I have 9 cons. Pro number 8 for me, or
Woo!
pros. Excuse me. I have 9 pros.
Okay.
Is the decent monster action. I think I have just realized the Gamera franchise doesn't have the best monster fights. So I'll just roll up the monster action overall as its own pro because there's not really a single. There's only 2 monster fights in this movie, and there's kind of very limited monster action overall. But what we have here is entertaining enough. When Zetus is going on a rampage in Toru's village, it's quite believable. It's a lot of fun to watch. Zetus certainly terrasses his way through the village pretty badly.
Hmm.
Uh, and really, there's only 2 scenes of monster action.
Yeah.
Zetus' first attack, and then Zetus' second attack on the city of Nagoya. But that's also a lot of fun too. And I think this might be the longest, technically, the longest Gamera fight of the entire franchise. It's just a shame that it's not that great, or at least there's one big issue that I have with it. But it is still fun enough. And really, all the monster action, why I say it's so decent, it's because of Pro number 9, is the phenomenal practical special effects in this movie. I'm just going to say it right
Hmm.
now. This movie has the best special effects of the entire Gamera franchise. They're not my favorite. My favorite effects are still Gamera 2, Advent of Legion. But overall,
Hmm.
on a
Yeah.
technical scale, if 1.5 billion yen is a big budget for a Japanese film, you can tell this movie had a big budget. All the miniature sets are very well made and very well detailed. They look great when they're destroyed. All the explosions are very good. Like the village set looks believable when Zetus is terrassing his way through it. And the miniature city of Nagoya is fucking pitch perfect, spot on. It's extremely well detailed. It's very believable and very realistic. And when Zetus is terrassing his way through, it looks so good while it's being destroyed. The composite shots, with the exception of 1 or 2, are very, very fucking well done. The CG for the most part is pretty decent. There's very little CGI that's used. When Gamera is spinning around full flying saucer at the very end, obviously that's CGI, but that looks good. Actually looks better than any of the shots in the Heisei Gamera trilogy, if I'm being honest. When Gamera shoots his fireball at Zetus, that looks really good. When Gamera blows up at the very end, or
Yeah.
at the very beginning, that looks really good too. Um, and the suit designs are absolutely fantastic. They're very well made, very well detailed. The designs are really good. Um, Also, there's some CGI enhancement for Toto's eyes to make them look more anime-esque, but also just to show Gamera moving around his eyes. Even though there are a lot of shots where the animatronic or the full-scale model of the juvenile Gamera actually does move his eyes and closes his eyelids, are very
Hmm.
cool and done practically. Um, Zetus's long tongue, for the most part, is CGI, but I think that's fine.
Hmm.
It's okay for what they're doing. Um, but yeah, the practical effects are all top notch in this movie, and some of the best and most underrated special effects of the entire kaiju genre, honestly. Yeah, this movie shows that it
Yeah.
cost 1.5 billion yen, but still amazing special effects. Love them.
Yeah. Uh, uh, I, I looked it up, and I don't know if it's for like this year or whatever, but I think that they were saying that 500 yen would equal something to like $5 in American money, but I'm not too sure about that.
Well, let's actually
So
look it up right now.
yeah, because you could actually tell how much it actually was in
Oh, here we go.
uh,
1.5
American
billion
dollars.
is equivalent to $10,576,000 in American money. Yeah, I
Woo!
can see that. In 2006, that surely was a pretty decent budget for a monster movie. Alrighty, so
Yeah,
with all these good things to say about Gamera the Brave, I have four mixed elements and I have five cons. Most of my mixed elements are extremely minor, and a few of my cons are also fairly minor because I see what the movie is going for. What do you have for cons? Like two?
yeah. I I have to, and that's probably because me growing up, my first real movie was Godzilla versus Mothra, or the original.
Oh,
So
Mothra versus Godzilla.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Excuse me. So like my whole life, I watched Godzilla movies. So I mean, a lot of stuff doesn't really bother me, especially with the Showa era. But yeah, these are probably just some little simple cons, but I'll get to it. Um, which probably you've probably heard this before, but Gamera's roar is kind of a con. Yeah, I know. I've seen your last video, so
Okay, so my first mixed element, this honestly really doesn't bother me, but I see it for what it is. Gamera does not retain his classic roar in this film. This is because Gamera's classic roar is actually owned by Toho. In Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, when the Godzillasaurus is being gunned down by the U.S. military, its pained screeches is Gamera's roar, straight up.
yeah,
And the only way that Gamera was able to retain his roar for the Heisei series is because those were distributed by Toho. And even then, I never mentioned this throughout my Heisei Gamera series reviews. Gamera's roar sounds different in those films. It sounds more muffled and kind of scratchy. It sounds like a recording of a sound effect. But yeah, Gamera does not retain his roar. They had to use a stock dinosaur roar from King Kong 76 for Gamera. And they also
yeah.
use a lot of stock like elk and deer sound effects and just generic animal stock sound effects for Gamera. I know what the problem is, so I just kind of let it go. It doesn't really bug me, but even when I first saw this movie, I knew that Gamera did not retain his roar. Even back then, it threw me off just a little bit. But honestly, I don't hate it as much as everybody else does. I do agree that it doesn't quite match Gamera's cutesy design in this movie. But I do think it is fairly fitting for the adult tortoise Gamera at the very beginning. I don't mind it for that. Um, but yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I just say it's weird. It's weird to go through 11 movies retaining Gamera's classic roar, and then you get to this. It kind of does stick out like a sore thumb. But I'm just kind of okay with it. So that's why it's a mixed element for me.
Right, right. I mean, I don't totally hate it. I just, it's weird kind of hearing, especially, for the first time, I was like, what's going on with his roar? So, but
There
I mean,
are a
it doesn't
couple
bother me
fan
that
edits.
much anymore, but it's,
There's a
oh,
couple fan
yeah.
edits that fans have done over the years that reinstate Gamera's classic roar. And I'd be kind of interested to check out one of those, but I think every time one is uploaded, it's very quickly taken down, which is unfortunate. But I'd still be interested to check that out.
Okay, so
Con
uh,
number
my
two.
my con number two is there's no real explanation of where Zetus came from, or what species they think he is, or anything. Which
Okay,
it's
so
it I guess it would kind of be like a nitpick, kind of sort of, but I mean, even if they put just like a little something there, it it would went a long way.
all right, so fun fact. So
At least for some kind of.
Zetus himself is a mixed element, but there's one aspect of Zetus that is a full-on con, that being his lack of an origin and buildup. So Zetus himself is not a bad monster. He looks cool.
Yeah.
The suit is very well detailed and it's very well made. He looks very unique. I don't really think he was made as a nod to Godzilla, because to me, I mean, sure, he's a bipedal reptilian monster that has spines, but that doesn't come off as being Godzilla esque. To me, he just comes off as a giant demonic T Rex. But I'm okay with that. He looks cool. Um, But my issues with Zetus, he's such a generic monster. He has no special abilities. He has no origin. He has no personality. He feels like a King Kong monster. He's just here to give Toto something to fight. And he's very boring as a result, in my opinion, especially with him having no special abilities. I think Zetus might be tied with Virus as both my least favorite Gamera Kaiju, but also the weakest of Gamera Kaiju, in my opinion. He's just a giant lizard with a long, sharp tongue. Whoop de fucking do. But the aspect of him that's a con is, yeah, he has no origin and no buildup whatsoever. Like him attacking ships and eating people, that's buildup to the buildup. And then Zetus all of a sudden shows up out of nowhere halfway through the movie. It's kind of lame. So in that same novelization, there is somewhat of an origin for Zetus. It's explained in the novel that
Ah.
Zetus apparently was a species of marine reptile that fed on remains of the blown up Gauss from back in 1973, and consuming that Gauss flesh mutated this lizard into Zetus. Why couldn't that have been implemented into the movie? It's like what Andrew just said.
Ah.
Even that would have been just fine and just enough. I mean, sure, people probably say, well, you could elaborate on that further, but that would still be better than nothing. And as the movie currently stands, we have nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Not a single thing is mentioned for
Huh.
where does Zetus come from? Why is Zetus here? What's Zetus's deal? What kind of monster is he? Is he a natural monster? Is he a mutated monster? What the hell is he? There's nothing. So Zetus looks cool,
That's never
but
stated.
his but his placement in the story is very forced, and he's such a boring monster.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you.
Um, Mixed element number. Okay, so I'm gonna reiterate that or change that. I have three mixed elements. One of them was I was gonna say there's some dodgy digital effects, but now that I've actually watched the movie, there is very little CGI. Um, there's one composite shot that I do think sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb, and it's when Zetus and Toto are having their first fight. When they're just walking along on that bridge, you can very obviously tell that Zetus and Toto are composited onto that bridge, and it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but it's a quick shot. And also, Zetus's shadow when he's swimming underwater to attack Nagoya also kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But it's a quick shot too. So
Oh yeah.
I don't really care that much, but if you could see that, you can obviously tell, oh yeah, that's just a composited shadow. That doesn't look that great. So I have three mixed elements.
Hmm.
The first one is the lack of Gamera roar. Second is Zetus, and the third, I actually think the music for this movie, it's not bad, but it's very generic. It
Oh.
sounds more like whimsical family adventure music, which that is what this movie is, but it's not monster movie music whatsoever. Um, Not a bad score by any means, but I honestly don't remember a single piece of music from this movie. It just is very generic, standard movie music. I don't really have really any opinion on it other than just saying it's very generic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um so I already talked about one con, so I have four more. The least of which I think this movie it both has a non-ending, but it also has a very anticlimactic ending. As soon as Gamera is fully supercharged, all he does towards Zetus is allow himself to get bitten in the shoulder, tears off Zetus's tongue, and then blows Zetus up with one fireball. It's a cool effect,
Hmm.
and when Zetus blows up, it's a fucking sight to behold seeing him blow the fuck up. But that's it. And then Toto just collapses and then he spins like a flying saucer, never to be seen again. Because 17 years later, this movie's still never gotten a sequel. That's it. Uh Con number three is okay, I will agree with Zazubar. The monster movie side of this film is quite weak and underdeveloped. But I see what this movie and the director were going for. They wanted this to be more of a human story, focusing on the emotional bond between a boy and his pet turtle, like Free Willy or the Iron Giant. I get it and I appreciate it, but if you want to watch this as a Gamera movie, and especially as a Gamera fan, with how basic, simple, and underdeveloped the monster movie side of things are, I can see it being kind of disappointing. That's why I think you need to temper your expectations. Don't watch this as a Gamera movie. Watch it as something like E.T. or The Iron Giant.
Yeah.
If you watch it like that, this movie's a blast. But as a Gamera movie, it's very underdeveloped, unfortunately. Con number four, the monster fights are way too one sided. This is my problem with the monster action. Zetus kicks the shit out of Gamera 99% of this movie. The only hits that Gamera gets in towards Zetus is he knocks him over a couple of times with his shell. He tears off his tongue and he blows him up with one fireball. That's it. Other than
He
huh? Oh, and
uh
he breathes
he hits
fire
him.
in his face one time.
Yeah, on the bridge scene when he was going, he uh he grabbed Zetus's tongue as Zeus was going up and pulled him up into his face, and he shot him right in the mouth.
Yep, that was cool. That surprised me the
Yeah,
first time I saw this. Um, but even still, most of the fights in this movie, Zetus kicks the shit out of Gamera, whacks him with his tail a whole bunch of times, knocks him over with his head a bunch of times, um, throws him into a fucking skyscraper, stabs him and slices him with his tongue a bunch of times, and stomps him into the ground a few times too. Zetus kicks the shit out of Gamera, and it's very fucking frustrating. It feels artificial. Like, I mean, I get that it's a young baby Gamera, but Gamera can still put up a bigger fight than this. This is why I think they should hybrid, something that I talked about with Gamera guarding the universe. I wish Gamera could both breathe just simple fire and shoot his explosive fireballs. At least if he's underpowered, he
yeah,
still has his fire breath. That way Gamera at least has something to use against Zetus. But with him being just a giant turtle, he's got nothing to attack Zetus with. It's kind of lame. And that's why I don't really much I like the effects, um, but I don't much care for the final monster fight. And also too, I think this is where the pacing falters just a little bit. I think it goes on a bit too long. It kind of drags its feet. Though I get that it also does that to reinforce Toto and Toru's bond, especially when Toru gives Toto that red stone at the very end. Nope, nothing. But still, I think it goes on a bit too long. Uh, oh, that's lame.
there it is. There it is.
But my biggest problem with this movie, now I don't mind Toru as a character. I actually think he might be the best character in this movie, especially in terms of acting, and especially in terms of child actors in the Gamera franchise.
Oh,
He is
yeah.
definitely the best of the bunch. The actor playing him, he actually quit acting right after this movie. He did one or two more movies after this, but since then he's retired. But the actor does a great job playing him. He says a lot with just his face. He never cries or bemoans the loss of his mother vocally, but you can tell in his face and his body language that he's taking his mother's death very hard. He says a lot with just his face. A lot of times he has these very solemn and sad expressions on his face, and you can just tell he's struggling to cope with the death of his mom. So that's great on the actor's part. But my issue with Toru, I feel like he's intentionally dense and stubborn in refusing to admit that Toto is Gamera. So many times he blatantly ignores people saying, "Hey, kid, this is Gamera. You have raised a new Gamera." But he's just like, "No, it's Toto. It's not Gamera. It's Toto. It's Toto, damn it. Gamera kills himself. I don't want Toto to kill himself. Toto's not going to kill himself. Kid, are you blind? He's a giant turtle. That's Gamera. You're stupid." Again,
I mean,
said
at least
that.
he's.
Go ahead.
Oh no, at least he's not a Showa era Kitty.
True,
That's for
yes.
sure.
Still though, like towards the end of the movie, when his denial is at his strongest,
Mhm.
kind of frustrating listening to him just go on and on about no, it's Toto, not Gamera. It's Toto, not Gamera. Ugh. But really, I don't have like I have 5 cons, but none of them are super major cons. I really dig this movie a lot still. So what are your final thoughts and rating on Gamera the Brave?
I mean, overall, I mean, to me, it's a really, really good family friendly Gamera, even though it does have, a lot of monster gore and stuff. But I mean, what's a monster movie without a little gore in it? You know. So I would probably give this one an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I love Gamera the Brave. This is definitively my second favorite Gamera movie. I love the crap out of it. It's a shame that this movie did not do well because supposedly they wanted to have this movie be a setup for a new Gamera trilogy. I would have liked to see that come to fruition, but alas, no such luck.
Yeah,
But still, I love Gamera the Brave. It's a very underrated movie. It's a very underappreciated movie. May not be a great Gamera movie, but I just think it's a good movie overall. Which is why I will be giving Gamera the Brave, despite it having 5 cons, I'm going to give this a very solid 9 out of 10.
okay,
I dug the shit out of Gamera the Brave, and I highly recommend it to those who may be more casual monster movie fans and also casual Gamera fans. Give this
yeah,
movie a watch. And if you have young kids, this is an excellent, good kids Gamera movie. This, along with Gamera versus Gauss, I think are the best kids Gamera movies.
yeah.
So, Andrew, you got anything to plug?
Yeah. Uh, I have my own channel. It's called Texas Guy Movie Reviews. Mm, I do have a podcast, but I'm on a little hiatus on that one because I haven't had no listens in a really long time on that one. But it's called Andrew's Crappy Movie Reviews, where I subject myself to crappy movies and then review them.
Sounds fun. Uh,
Sometimes.
all right, well, go check out Andrew's channel and go check out Andrew's crappy movie reviews. Give him a like and a sub. Thank you all to those who have patiently waited on me tackling the Gamera franchise. No, I will not be ranking the franchise for my next video. I want to do that after Gamera Rebirth comes out, after I've reviewed Gamera Rebirth as well. So for the moment, this is the entire Gamera franchise. 2 Kaiju franchises down, and only one more to go.
Yeah.
But I'll save a lot of that for next year. Post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And as always, go out and if you discover a baby turtle that hatches out of an egg on top of a red stone and it starts flying around, dude, that's Gamera. Come on now. And I will see you guys in the next video.